your dream car while you're young is by far one of the smartest decisions that I've ever made in my entire life. Probably 9 out of 10 people will tell you that it is by far one of the worst financial decisions that you can ever make, because cars are depreciating assets and they're expensive and blah, 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 and you're not financially stable yet. I think they're wrong, because when I was 21 years old, I bought my dream car, an A90 Toyota Supra. And it was by far the best decision that I've ever made in my entire life. So in today's video, I'm going to tell you how I bought my dream car at just 21 years old, how you can do it too, and why it's the best decision that you can ever make in your entire life. Now, for my very first car, I made the dumbest decision that I could ever possibly make, and I bought a Subaru WRX. And no, not because buying a Subaru is dumb, but because I leased that car, which meant that at the end of the 3 years, I had to give it back eventually, and I got nothing back from it. And since it was a lease, I had to save up for a down payment for my next vehicle, and over the course of a few years, I did just that. But eventually, I had saved up enough money, and I bought myself my dream car, an A90 Toyota Supra. And if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know that story far too well, because I love that car. But I'm gonna tell you how I bought my dream car at just 21 years old, and how you can do it too, and obviously tell you why buying your dream car or owning an expensive car like this at such a young age is such a good thing to do. So when it comes to buying your dream car, most people have two different options. They have their all-time dream car, and then they have what's called your attainable dream car. And while I don't like the word attainable dream car because it implies that the other car, your ultimate dream car, isn't attainable, I think it's important to have a cheaper priced vehicle as one of your dream cars at least, because it gives you a goal to work towards. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this video. Now, when I had my Subaru WRX, I bought it and I was 19. I leased it because it was just a brand new car that I can get for a cheap monthly payment. Ultimately, I didn't have to save up like 10 grand to put down an entire lump sum on just one vehicle. I could pay it off month by month, and I think it cost me about $300 or $400 a month. But at that time, I was in college, and I kind of got my first big boy job, I guess you could say, which was a job at Foot Locker. It was kind of my first real job because it was almost full time, and it wasn't something that I just got over the summer between the time I left school and went back to school. So obviously, having a job is something that you need to do if you want to own a car like this, or just any car in general. That's an obvious one. But what's not obvious is how I actually afforded that car, because if I'm being honest, having a minimum wage job sometimes, and really most of the time nowadays, is not going to cut it. Since I worked at Foot Locker, I was able to get first dibs on sneakers, and at the time, I was a huge sneakerhead, and I love all kinds of Jordans, Yeezys, all of that stuff. If you're into sneakers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Which meant that since I had first dibs on sneakers, I had a choice. Do I buy them for myself, or I buy them to resell them? And in some cases, I went ahead and bought it for myself, and in other cases, in most cases, I actually went ahead and resold them. But this started to make me realize something, and it was something that was so important for me to learn, and I think that this is so important for young people who are looking to get into their dream car or their first car in general, to make sure they know and understand before they go ahead and spend that money. And that's just the idea of having multiple streams of income. If I'm being honest, nowadays, you can't absolutely by any means whatsoever live off of just one paycheck, especially if you want to own nice things in life like performance cars, sneakers, or anything in general, whatever your hobby is. That's because of one simple fact: inflation. We all know that our paychecks are not going up at the same rate that inflation is going up. So $100 this year might not be worth $100 next year. I mean, think about it. I remember the days where you can go into the store and buy a sweatshirt or a hoodie for $40. And nowadays you go into a Nike store and what does it cost? Like $65, $70? But the very first tip that I have for someone who wants to buy their dream car at a young age is to invest your money and to have multiple streams of income. Whether it be reselling stocks or crypto or whatever it is, you have to have something that is not only going to pay your bills, but it's also going to allow you to buy nice things while you're young. Because while you're young, you don't have a house payment, you don't really buy groceries, at least for most people. So it makes it a whole lot easier to buy nice things like this car right here. Before I go on and continue talking about how you can buy your dream car, I've got to tell you why you should buy your dream car. Because I mentioned that most people are going to tell you that it's by far the worst financial decision that you could ever make in your entire life. While they might have a point, don't get me wrong, they definitely do have a good point. Buying a Mark V Toyota Supra when I was 21 years old put me in a completely different mindset than I was in before. You see, when I was doing some research on this topic, I came across a video about a guy who bought a BMW M4 at just 20 years old. In business, there's a saying that says the goalpost is always moving. And what that means is that every time you hit a goal, you realize that you can do more and more and more. Because if you make $100, who says you can't make $1,000? And if you make $1,000, who says you can't make $10,000? While working in Foot Locker, I had saved up enough money to buy a pretty good car outright, without any car payment, without any financing or anything. It was about, I want to say, $18,000. And I didn't only work in Foot Locker. Like I said, I was reselling. I was also doing some stocks on the side, just a little bit of crypto, NFTs, things like that. But I told myself, do I want to put this entire amount down on a car and just not have any car payment? Or do I want to go big and put a good chunk of it down on a car that I really want, or a car that I've always dreamed of having? And right around that time is when the A90 Supra came out, and you guys know the rest. But if you don't, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because I make videos about it all the time. But when I bought my Supra, I had what's called imposter syndrome. I felt like I shouldn't be here. I said I shouldn't be owning this car. I felt like for some reason I shouldn't be here. Like I shouldn't be owning that car. There was no way that I was actually sitting in that car, driving home, and I was about to park it in my garage. And I remember the very next day after I bought it, I woke up and I thought I was actually dreaming. And I've never felt like that in my entire life except for this one moment. I flipped up the lights in my garage and there it was, sitting right there in front of me, and it was mine. And right then and there, it made me realize that anything is possible as long as I put my mind to it. When you buy your dream car, you realize that anything is possible, because if I can afford this $50,000 car, then someday I'll be able to afford a $70,000 car, a $100,000 car, even a $150,000 car, which I'm definitely not there yet, but there's no doubt in my mind that I will be there someday. Buying my dream car taught me that if I set a goal and I work towards it so hard, and I tell myself that there is no plan B, I'm going to make it and I'm going to make this thing happen, then I promise you guys it will happen. Because when I bought my Supra, it was a huge mix of emotions. I felt like one day I wasn't going to be able to afford it. Like I was going to wake up in 6 months and say, damn, I don't know how I'm going to make my next car payment. But once I had that car payment, it motivated me to do more, and it motivated me to make more money than just what the car payment cost. But I made sure that every single month I made more money than what that car payment cost me. And this is something that would stick with me forever. But there's another huge reason why buying your dream car at a young age is such a great thing to do, and that's because of the networking opportunities that you get because of it. Now, I'll be honest, here in New York City, it is a completely different set of people when it comes to networking. Here, when you own a nice car, people kind of don't look up to you always. Sometimes they look down upon you because they think you either have daddy's money or family money, or they think that you do some kind of illegal thing just to be able to afford that car. But I can wholeheartedly say that in most other parts of the country, if you own a nice car, it is going to open up so many different networking opportunities for you, because people are going to look at you and say, wow, a 21-year-old is able to afford a car like that. That kid is going somewhere. I'm going to talk to him. When I used to go up to people in car meets when I had my Subaru, was a completely different experience as when I had my Supra. Because when I told people I drove a Supra, they automatically thought that I had something to offer them, meaning that I was able to provide them some kind of value, because if I was able to own a car like that at such a young age, then obviously I was on the right path and I was worth talking to. They didn't really see it as just a young kid going up to them saying, hey, I like your car, because there is a certain respect factor that you get when you own a car at a young age, whether that be from friends or random people on the street, but especially from older people. I'll definitely say that when I told people that I was 21 or 22 with a Supra, they had a ton of respect for me, and that was definitely something that opened a lot of doors. And a lot of the people that are my friends today, or maybe not my best friends, but are just good friends of mine or really good acquaintances or connections, I'd say, are a lot of the people that I've met at car meets or in the car community because I drove a Supra at such a young age. So here's how you buy your dream car at 21 years old. If I was 18 years old and I could do it all over again, here's exactly what I would do. For your very first car, I would not lease it. I would finance a car, something that is going to keep its value. But trust me, do your research and buy a car that is going to maintain its value. Because at the time, my WRX actually maintained its value pretty well. And obviously, I couldn't buy that car out because it was a lease. I had to return it. Buy a car that is going to maintain its value. A friend of mine did this with a Honda S2000. And he bought it for maybe 18, 19, maybe low 20s. And eventually, he was able to sell it like 2 years later for $25K because that car had actually gone up in value. And there are a few cars you can do your research and do this with, but I would definitely say to pick up a car just like that. After that, you can sell that car, and once you start having a semi-stable job, you will have just about broken even and have a good chunk of money to put down as a down payment for your next car. Which brings me to how much I paid for my A90 Toyota Supra. Now, I said I had about $18,000 saved up. I put down $15,000 on that car, and the MSRP was $50,000 on the dot, which meant that the amount that I financed that car for was only about $38K after taxes, of course. And I drove that car for a year. I modified it and tuned it, and there are some things that I didn't get my money back for, of course. But when I sold it, I had taken off all the mods. I parted out the entire car. Every single part got taken off the car and sold individually, because that's how you make more money. So make sure you always keep your stock parts unless you're replacing a part that broke on the car. Over the course of that year, the Supra actually maintained its value really well, so I was able to get an even exchange for this M340. And the money that I made selling the Supra parts, I actually put into parts for this car, and some of the parts, since they both had the B58 engine, were actually interchangeable. Now, however, this car really didn't maintain its value that well. So when I sell this car, I'm pretty much not going to get anything back from it. I'm going to get exactly what I owe on the loan if I sell this car. The monthly payment on the Supra was something like $630 a month. And with insurance, since I live in New York City, it was a little bit more expensive, something like $250. So I knew that no matter what, with whatever job I had, with whatever side hustle I was doing at the time, I knew I had to make enough money to cover that car payment. I just finished the video, but I had to record this clip and throw it in here because there is just something that happens to your brain when you take a risk and it pays off. Now, I've never been a very confident person. I've never been, just overly like, I can do anything. And that's really just because of the way that I grew up. And if I ever get big on YouTube, then I'll do a whole video documenting my entire life. But when you take a risk like buying your dream car and it actually pays off and you actually have a ton of fun with it, you actually meet a bunch of new people and you can actually afford paying it, you start to realize that if this was possible, then what else is possible? What other cars can I get? What other cars can I buy? What things can I do to my car? Can I modify it? What else can I buy? What else can I do in life? Because if I did one thing and I set a goal and I smashed it, who's to say I can't do it again? Who's to say I can't do it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times? And I really think that that's something that the younger generation is lacking, the opportunity to prove themselves. Because I'm 25 years old and I compare myself all the time to these people who are 19 and 20, who are millionaires. But you've got to realize realize that as much as it sucks to say, not everyone is created equal. I think that we all have the chance to do great things in our lives, but not all of us were given the same things, the same circumstances, the same lives. A lot of people grew up in poverty. A lot of people grew up in a single parent household. A lot of people grew up with no parents. A lot of people grew up with 10 other brothers and sisters. But in high school, one of my teachers who actually cared told me this saying that would stick with me forever. Make it happen. No matter what you do, no matter what the circumstances are, if your back's against the wall, if you feel like you're defeated, if you feel like there's no way that you can possibly win, make it happen. Trust me, a lot of people feel like this. A lot of people feel like they will never accomplish their goals, that their dreams are always just gonna be dreams. But if you live by that and you say that no matter what, I'm gonna make this thing happen that I want to happen, trust me, it will happen. So buying my dream car at 21 years old taught me a bunch of things that I'm so thankful for. It taught me about goal setting. It taught me that if I put my mind to something and I give it my all, I will always hit my goal. It truly told me that the sky is the limit, and if I want something, I can get it. And although I think that it's unfortunate that we live in a materialistic world where the value that people bring to the table are judged by materialistic factors, I will still say that the networking opportunities that you get from owning a nice car and also the motivation that it gives you up in your brain is by far two of the biggest things and biggest reasons why you should buy your dream car at a young age. Because when I was 21 years old, I didn't have my life figured out. I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I was in college, I lived at home, and I still live at home even at 25 years old. But about a year or two ago, I set another goal to move out, and I actually just recently hit that goal. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't just say screw it and pull the trigger on that Supra. And I know that might not sound real, but I'm serious. If I didn't buy that Supra, I think my whole life would be so much different. Because when I bought that car, it made me push myself out of my comfort zone, to set goals that maybe I could or couldn't accomplish, but to make sure by any means necessary that I did just that. So if you've watched this far into the video and you're under 20 years old, trust me, buy that dream car. Trust me, it's gonna be the best decision that you will ever make in your entire life. Because once you make that risk and you do it, it's gonna open up a whole world of possibility. Because not only are you gonna own an awesome car, but you're gonna realize that you can do anything. And with all that being said, guys, hit that subscribe button to follow along with my car journey and every awesome thing that I'm gonna be doing with this car and with every single car that I will own in the future. My name is Ryan from Gears and Gains, and I will see you in the next one.